Right now is Ohio Senator, Senate Homeland and Governmental Affairs Committee and Senate Foreign Relations Committee member Rob Portman. And Senator, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
So many things to talk about. I want to talk about what the president is doing in terms of these visas, H-1B visas, H-2B visas. But first, your reaction to what you just heard from AG Barr. I understand there was this briefing in the Senate last week in one of the committees which raised the issue of the U.S. needing to get behind another horse to back up telecom and challenge Huawei. Your reaction, would you like to see the United States take a stake in Ericsson?
I'd like to see us send a really strong market signal, and that means that we're open for business. We want competitors. We just finished an investigation, as you know, of Chinese telecom companies here in the United States. We found out that one, which was under investigation, was being removed from the market, but there were three that were not and had been here for 2 decades. And all the indications that we got in our investigation was that this was a national security risk for the United States because that data was likely being transferred back to China, and specifically the Chinese Communist Party is involved with these telecom companies. So I think it's a real problem. I think the market signal would be that if Nokia and Ericsson continue to develop this technology to compete with Huawei, that they have a market here in the United States. That's probably the better way to do it. But we do need to be sure that the Western world has an alternative.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that the Chinese government is doing, the Chinese Communist Party, whether it's telecom or education. This week, the Department of Education finding $1 billion in anonymous foreign funds among institutions nationwide, even in a school with direct contracts with the Chinese Communist Party. What about that? Because AG Barr also talked about the threat from Chinese Communist Party stealing intellectual property as we speak. Listen to what he said.
Can you tell me a bit about what the CCP is doing? I know there's been a real rethinking of the relationship between the United States and China.
The way I look at it, this is a fundamental challenge to the United States. What's at stake is the economic opportunity of our children and our grandchildren, whether we can continue to be the technological leader of the world. The Chinese have embarked on a very aggressive program during this time of stealing and cheating in order to overtake us. They've stolen our intellectual property. When they steal our secrets about future technology, they're stealing the future of the American people.
So, Senator, you have bipartisan legislation, the Safeguarding American Innovation Act, that would work to stop foreign governments from stealing information from taxpayer-funded research. Tell me about that. And what is the CCP doing? Is it just targeting people like the chairman of the chemistry department at Harvard, paying him, Charles Lieber, so that he just sends data back to the CCP? I mean, I've never seen anything where a foreign government actually has a real strategy of growing, strategy of being number one by stealing.
Yeah. Maria, you're absolutely right. And what's happening is, and it's been happening for 2 decades, the Chinese government, and really the Chinese Communist Party, when you look back at who's behind this, has been systematically targeting promising American research and researchers, paying them to take that research to China, not telling either the taxpayer-funded institutions like the National Institutes of Health, which just fired 54 of their researchers, 90% of whom had ties to China, not telling the universities or other research institutions like the Cleveland Clinic in my own state of Ohio, where recently someone was arrested for taking over $3 million from China. China set up a replicate lab for them in China. They actually took the samples, biological samples, from Cleveland to China. So this has been happening for a long time. We got to shut it down. Our legislation is Safeguarding American Innovation. We introduced it last week. It's bipartisan. We need to pass it. It would address all of the issues we just talked about, including foreign governments influencing schools.
It certainly feels like the global CEOs need to understand the national security risks better. Senator, thank you, sir. We'll be watching. Senator Rob Portman. We'll be right back.